Hey everyone, welcome to Checkpoint Achieve's Bioshock Infinite Spoilercast. In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about Bioshock Infinite. We just finished up the game and we're going to share our experiences of the game, talk about the gameplay, the story, and the ending to boot. I'm Bryden Keks and I got with me here today Gage Paul and Dan Szajnzinger. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing alright.
Alright, so what we're going to do on this show is we're going to talk about the story first. We're going to go from the beginning to the end, talk about the ending, and kind of our opinions on all of that. We'll also talk about the gameplay too, kind of what we liked and disliked about it, the vigors, the actual weapons that we use, and overall the experience going through the levels. At the very end of the episode, we'll also talk about our verdict, kind of give our final rating of what we thought of the game on the Checkpoint Achieve scale that we started up with the Tomb Raider Spoilercast. And we'll also get Emily Woodley in on the show too, who wasn't able to be here today, but we'll have a little Skype conversation intertwined at the very end as well. But let's start off with Bioshock Infinite. From the very beginning, guys, you start off, you're on a boat, you're going to this lighthouse.
I love that intro scene. It was like, I was like, is it the same lighthouse? Is it? Is it gonna be the same lighthouse?
Yeah, it was so cool because, you know, it takes what was kind of mysterious about the first game, right? And then it's you know you're gonna go there. You already kind of have this feeling that this is kind of how the game's gonna start. It's how a Bioshock game now feels like it starts, right?
Yeah.
And the two characters that you're on the boat, you get to know a little bit more about later on in the game, but really just, it was kind of weird. It was kind of tongue-in-cheek how they're just, you know, this back and forth banter's going on, and you don't really know much about Booker at this point, but it's really interesting how they all tie that in at the end of the game, how that scene is actually very much just the beginning of, you know, Booker in this universe, and going into the lighthouse and blasting off into, I guess you could say, space, as you jumped up into Columbia, 15,000 feet, hallelujah, and you landed in the church there. That was all very neat.
Yeah, it was really cool, like when you get out and you're just kind of walking in this like watery area, and there's like that one guy and you're like, where am I? And he's like, the promised land.
Yeah, you're as close as you're gonna get to heaven, son. And I'm like, okay, we got the religious vibes right away. We're already on that track with this, and yeah, it was neat too because the song that they kind of continually go back to is playing in the background at the very beginning there, and you get baptized as well, which is kind of funny to see too. Foreshadowing indeed. So yeah, you're going through that. Then you're obviously on this mission. Bring back the girl. Wipe away the debt is the story that you have imprinted in your brain to start off with in this game. And yeah, you're kind of looking for Elizabeth to start off with. That's the girl that you're trying to find. You have this little, I guess you'd say, it's a little case that has pretty much all your information, just kind of like that mission detailing information. Really, it is helping him out as a character because, as we'll get to, this is just him jumping into this world at this very point in the game. And it was neat because it wasn't a lot of context to start off with.
No, but it was kind of like a mystery that you get to more and more of.
Yeah, you really, they don't give you a lot to start off with, but then you start to build that up a bit. So the one thing I'll ask you guys though is, because once you move on from that, you're seeing this world for the first time. What was your experiences with that? Like, did it blow you away? What did you guys feel when you saw Columbia, when you were first walking onto the streets?
I was like a small child. I was like, this is so like happy and everything. I was exploring like all the little shops and like looking in every trash can, eating all this food that I had no reason to eat.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you get to that scene where you go to the raffle.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fun. And they bring out, and I'm expecting to get like a money.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I won. Something good's gonna happen.
And it's just like, oh, racism.
Racism. Yeah. I want to jump just a little bit back there though. Like, I spent about, I was doing a walkthrough for this series. I spent maybe about 30 minutes just walking around that fair.
Yeah.
No reason to do it. There wasn't really any benefit for me to do that. But I still was doing it because I was having a lot of fun and just the world was so alive. I found these kids smoking in the corner. It was funny, you know, going around doing a couple of the mini games, shooting stuff. It was all unique and fun, and it was kind of building this place to start off with because you don't know much about it. And I think that a lot of people are going to go into that and just kind of take their time, and it really does kind of give you this idea of what world you're currently entering into, at least at the very start of the game. Yeah, so that was kind of my experience with that. Did you guys kind of do the same thing, or?
Yeah, I don't think I spent quite as long, but I did spend like quite a long time before I got to any of the actual story, I'll call it.
Yeah,
So
the actual like that's kind of just like the hub world almost at the beginning of the game, where it's not really like that, but it's before you jump into the action. It's before the game really gets going, but it's kind of like this quiet, happy place that you can just explore and see what it has to offer.
Yeah, I definitely played a lot of the mini games. Except when I learned that I was only winning like 10 silver eagles.
You're like, what is this? This is a ripoff. And later on, you're finding all this other stuff that's way more. But yeah, it's definitely cool how it does
literally
that.
finding like $24 in trash cans.
Yeah, people throwing away money left, right, and center. So yeah, there's the fact too that you see the Beware the False Shepherd, the taloned hand that has the AD on there. You see that you have this AD symbol on you as well, and I couldn't really make much of it at that point. Because there's so much religious stuff at the beginning. I was like, AD after death. I don't know. I wasn't putting the piece together. I think that there might be some smart people that could have put that together, because Booker's last name's DeWitt, and he keeps calling out for, this girl named Anna, which I actually assumed Anna at the very beginning was his wife, because there was this point where at the very beginning it was kind of like you lost your wife in child labor, I think was the...
Yeah, that's the explanation.
So I kind of felt like that the child died as well. I don't know, because it does a lot of that too, where it's like it's feeding you this information, but it's not really giving you the whole circumference of what's actually going on, right? And with that, I was kind of like, okay, so Anna's probably his wife, and he probably lost her, but that's anything but the fact. But let's move on a little bit from that, though, because after that, and this is pretty close thereafter, because that's when the comet really gets starting. You don't really have much. You have your pistol, and you have what is it called, the weapon that is on your hand?
The skyhook.
Yeah, the skyhook. So the skyhook is a brutal weapon in this game. And
yeah, the first person you kill is like their face being slowly pushed towards it,
just completely destroyed. And it's one of those things that it was like, the pistol and the skyhook, just to start off with, were like the perfect 1-2 combo just to kind of get you into it. You had the one vigor that wasn't really that helpful, the possession one. You get to use it a bit more for more interesting circumstances down the road, but at the beginning it was a nice little kind of intro, at least I felt like. So, but yeah, the other part that we kind of wanted to touch on a bit is that we're looking at this world, and it's such a amazing world that has so much stuff going on in it, and I wanted to make a point of this, even though it's a very small part of the story, is the anti-Lincoln people that you meet not too far into the game.
I thought that was like a really nice touch, like little details like that really are what made the game.
And the funny part about that too is that it's like, at that very point, yes, you've seen this high religious tension, and yes, you've seen racism to start with, but still this world seems very kind of calm nonetheless. You went to Rapture and Bioshock, and that place was just torn a bit. Yeah. Everybody's like these monsters. This place looks completely normal. I felt like I'm safe here, and then these things are kind of like undertones, but seeing an actual society that is welcome there, that has John Wilkes Booth as their kind of monument, I'm assuming they're worshiping
like him
as a hero, yeah. And they also, I don't know if they're directly connected, but there's also, shortly thereafter, you can see that there's a resistance against the founding fathers, which are considered the people that people worship in this. The prophet is obviously the leader, but the founding fathers are these idols that people worship in the city of Columbia. There is some other stuff that goes on after that. You start building up your kind of prowess with using the skyhook a bit, and also using your weapons, but the next really big point in the game is when you go to the tower that Elizabeth is in. You have to work your way to Monument Island, but you finally get there. And I think one of the most promising parts about this game that really actually did pay off was the fact that Elizabeth was an absolutely amazing character.
She was one of the best. Like, she was better characterized than most main characters are in games.
And this is my opinion, not your guys' opinion. You can agree or disagree if you want to, but I think that she's probably the best character that I've seen in a video game that wasn't like, sometimes you get a really great main character, but I think she was the best supporting character, if you want to call that or call her that, and also probably the best female character I've ever seen in a video game, just straight up, because the role that she was able to play in this game and the way that she was able to just her character was expressed through these animations, emotions. The actual voice acting was absolutely fantastic. And it's hard in a game that's so short for you to grow emotions toward a character, but they really, at least for me, hit it off with her.
They do a great job making you get attached to Elizabeth.
Yeah, and so you're going to her, and you kind of start to see that she's not been treated the best. She's in this tower, some experimentation's gone on with her, and yeah, you finally get up to where she's living. That was actually a really great scene too, because you see her just kind of behind the double paned glass. She can't see you, but you can see her, and you see her in her environment. And one of the big comparisons that we kind of talked about before we started the show, so she really has this kind of Disney character feel to her, where at least at the very beginning of the game, she's so carefree. She has this spirit that's very similar to kind of a Disney princess, and
she even kind of looks like a Disney princess.
The way she moves too, like the way she just kind of floats around.
In.
Yeah, it's really neat how they're able to kind of draw on those feelings, and that was really cool. So you move through the tower, and you finally meet her for the first time. Again, really neat. You see the little thimble on her thumb there. But then that's the first time that you get to meet what I was going to assume was the main enemy of the game.
The songbird.
The songbird, yeah. And I was scared shitless at that point, because I thought, oh no, am I going to have to deal with this massive bird? And obviously not. They push that off, and they do really interesting things with how the songbird is a part of the story. But yeah, that was kind of a neat scene how that works out. And from there, you're trying to escape the tower, unable to do so. The songbird kind of takes you down. It looks like you're falling to some sort of ocean, but you find yourself at Battleship Bay, which is this floating ocean in some, yeah, it's like a weird beach that's in the sky. So
it seems completely dangerous because there was no edge.
Yeah, no edge going on there, but we luckily fell into that. And this is kind of going continuously with how they build the character Elizabeth, because you see her so excited to hear music, you see her dancing, she asks you to dance. Again, one of probably the best moments in the game was her just kind of asking you to dance.
Hey, Miss Elizabeth.
Hello. Oh, this is wonderful. Oh, come dance with me, Mr. DeMay.
I don't dance. Come on, let's go.
Why? What could be better than this?
And very simple, very subtle, but just so much vibrance in her voice and the emotion of that she was trying to project there. I thought that was really cool. It was a really neat moment.
It was sweet.
It was sweet.
It was a nice time.
So you go through that area. You're trying to, well, I guess you're trying to get onto a shuttle or something like that?
Yeah, the First Lady's ship.
Yeah, and so you're talking to the man there. What happened for you guys in that point? Because there's a couple choices you can make. Did you demand for the ticket, or did you...
I pulled out my gun.
Pulled out your gun.
I demanded the ticket and got stabbed in the hand.
Yeah, did you get stabbed in the hand too?
No, I just shot him. And
so
Elizabeth freaked out.
The whole game, did you have a stab wound in your hand?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
You have the wrap.
Me and Dan went through this whole game where we had this big stab wound in our hand, and we had it wrapped around. She bandaged us up at one point. For you, I guess your hand was perfectly fine.
It was okay.
That's what you get for being rough. You get what you want. You keep your hand nice and tidy there. Me and Dan are nice people demanding for our tickets, and we get stabbed in the hand there. But another really cool part too, because she hasn't seen violence. We're talking about the racism. She's asking, why are these washrooms different? Then you get to this point where you're killing people, and she's like, pretty much cool with you so far. She's like, I don't really know who you are, but you're getting me out of here. This seems all right. And then
you shoot someone.
50 people.
And she's not too happy. She runs away. And
yeah.
So I thought it was really cool. And that kind of built up this, again, realizing that she's a very innocent character. A lot of games lose that, you know? They say... Again, we played Tomb Raider not too long ago. They really tried to build her up as this emotional character, and then they kind of threw that away at some point, saying, it's okay, and, you know, let's go kill hundreds of people. This is a bit different because it isn't... She never really kills anybody in the game except for a couple people, and she's very much just on the side. She's a supporting character, but they really influence the fact into the game that she's still very, very just... Not clueless, but she's... not known to all these things that are happening, all these terrible things, and especially...
She's naive.
She's naive, definitely, and it's one of those things that really adds a lot to the game and really makes it for me, again, I'm going to get to my verdict, but I have a lot of love for this game, and that was one of the best parts about it for me. But you finally catch up with her once again, and through working together, you go and find out that there's this, I guess I want to call it a shuttle, or...
Zeppelin.
Not getting to the Zeppelin just yet, but the thing to get you to the Zeppelin. Because remember, there was that one point in the game where you're trying to find the shock jockey, you need to go to the Hall of Heroes, and this was one of my favorite parts of the game, is that you're going to the Hall of Heroes, and there's this man named Slate there, and he's actually someone that fought with Booker DeWitt back in the day, and something's not right in his head. He doesn't seem... He's seen a little bit too much shit. He's seen a little bit too much action, and...
little bit of...
post-traumatic
stress disorder.
Yeah, and he essentially sends his men after you just to show that you're a great warrior. And there's these exhibits at the Hall of Heroes showing off Wounded Knee and the Boxer Rebellion, which were the two fights. I don't think that, or maybe he was, because Comstock, is essentially DeWitt, which we'll get to again. But it was neat because there's a lot of foreshadowing in this game that you don't necessarily
get right away.
Yeah, you don't understand. It all makes sense, or at least it tries its best to make sense to someone that doesn't understand anything going on. But then when you know everything that happened, if you look back at those certain circumstances, it is just a big, oh, okay, that makes...
Like that Wounded Knee exhibit, for example.
Yeah, it all kind of clicks a little bit more. And I thought it was really cool because it was this exhibit that was so vibrant. The game is extremely vibrant outside, but they played with all these different colors. They played with all these different environments. When you got into the inside of the exhibit, and then you finally had your showdown with Slate, in a way, he was sending a lot of guys at you. Never really fought him specifically. But then you had the option, again, and I'm going to ask you guys what you chose here. Did you choose to kill him, or did you just spare him?
I spared him.
Me too.
I spared him as well. We're all saints here, I guess. And so we don't really know what happens if you kill him. But yeah, I felt that, again, a decision like that, do you think there was influence in any way? Because someone was there right beside you?
Yeah, I didn't want Elizabeth to be running away and I'd have to chase her
I
again.
would have killed him if Elizabeth was not there. Because I was like, I don't want her to freak out again.
Yeah, so this is the great part about it, is that this is only like 3 hours in, maybe, I think. And we're already at the point, I think it's because we already lost her once, we don't want to lose her again. But the game, in a lot of ways, is kind of just making you already have this connection to this character. And I thought it was really neat because for me, I, much like you guys, didn't want to upset her again. I'm going to spare this man. He's going to get his due no matter what. And we'll just take the shock jockey because that's all we need.
Yeah.
So we head from there. We head to the airship. We're going to go board the First Lady. And it turns out she knows a lot about directions on Zeppelins.
On geography, yeah.
Geography. She's got her good geography degree that she's worked on inside her tower over all those years. And she knows that... Because again, this is one actually... I got a minor gripe here for me. I felt like he almost kind of told her what he was doing with her. And then she really acted surprised when he was like, yeah, I'm taking you away to go and like repay a debt or whatever.
That's exactly what he said, and then she was like, I thought you were taking me to Paris.
Yeah, at this point, I was totally like, yeah, let's go to Paris. Let's do this. Let's game over. Here we go. I wanted to play more Bioshock, but I was at the same point. I'm like, okay, we went through this. Let's make the right decision here, Booker. And obviously, he's not going to do that. And obviously, at this point in the game, it's only like 4 hours in. Something's going to have to go wrong. So that happened there, and she whacks you in the head. The songbird comes, or the Vox Populi comes.
Vox Populi comes.
Yeah, and you get your first experience of meeting Daisy Fitzroy, who's the other side of the coin in this case. And I want to touch back, because I just said other side of the coin.
I was just about to say.
That there's two things that specifically happen early on in the game. We're going to touch on what they had an impact on. But this game plays a lot with this connection between two different things that are the same thing in a lot of ways. And the heads and tails scenario at the very beginning of the game, very confusing to someone that was just kind of like this weird little circumstance that you meet these two characters. You don't really know much about them. They sound similar to the people on the boat, but you don't really probably know that. I got to the point of concluding that maybe halfway through the game, because I'm like, They sounded the same. They were gibbering the same way. They're probably them. But at this point, just two random characters that stop you and are like heads or tails. And, yeah.
And then nothing comes. They're like, oh, I guess. And they mark it on the board. And
mark it for like the 100th time that it's been the same outcome. And again, talking about outcomes and how things can be the same, but things can also be different. It's all just kind of gibberish at this point. But they do the same thing similar to that. They, at the beach, offer Elizabeth either a bird or a cage. And I chose the bird because she'd been in a cage all her life.
I also chose the bird for that reason.
Yeah, I chose the bird.
And yeah, so it was one of those things too, though, again, giving you an option, giving you a choice. And I don't think a lot of these had major impacts on the game.
No.
But they were still just kind of these small little nods. But yeah, so you meet Fitzroy for the first time. She's taken over the Zeppelin at this point. Tells you what you need to do in order to get it back is to get some weapons for
the Vox Populi.
Yeah, and by this point you're now thrown off the Zeppelin, and I was like, oh no, we're falling again. And again, Elizabeth has abandoned you because she's obviously not too happy with how you've been treating her. And again, kind of weird because I didn't really think that we kind of laid it out for her. We're like, yep, we're gonna save you and take you away from here, but we didn't say we're going to Paris. Actually, you know what? I think that he does kind of.
Yeah. How about Paris? I think is what he says.
Yeah, he's trying to get her away from a certain spot. She's like, no, you want to. Let's not dance right now. Let's go to Paris instead. And she's like, yeah, let's do it. And again, that kind of like enthusiasm and just her eye, everything. It's so cool because again, not a real person, but this computer generated character that looks so real and kind of projects these feelings is really neat. But yeah, so you lose her for a second time, and this time around, you're still trying to find her again. She's upset at you, but you meet up with her after a little while, and she kind of realizes that you need to work with her in order to at least get away from this place. And that's the first time that you guys meet the handyman as well, as he pops up. He's gonna do some damage, and she saves. Yeah, she saves you from a pretty bad demise there. So yeah, we move on with her. We are trying to find this gunsmith called Chen Lin, and we find out that his factory is still there. It's all good, but he isn't there anymore. And we go and save him, or try and go and save him. And this is really where the game starts going in a place that I was not expecting it to go.
The interdimension kind of thing, where you find him, he's being killed, and throughout the whole game, Elizabeth has been able to make something called tears, where she like opens up, and for the example, the first one you see it, she opens up and you see Paris and the Eiffel Tower, and then she closes it because a bus almost hits her.
Yeah.
And the what's their name? The twins.
We'll call them. I think
it's like
Robert is one. I don't know the Lutece twins, and yeah, they've popped up a couple times at this point, and you're starting to get to know them a little bit better.
And then when you find what's his name?
Chen Lin.
Chen Lin. He's been killed, and you're like, oh no, what do we do now?
Brutally murdered, in fact, as well. His face
blood
just
is
looked,
everywhere. His
yeah.
face is like brutalized, and then the Lutece twins come, and they're like, perspective, and you know, they're like, oh.
Yeah, is he dead or is he not dead? And it's a bit weird, and you start to see, okay, this is where we're going with this. But it was a cool moment because I didn't see that coming. I didn't see this like alternate reality stuff really coming into play. And this game has no precursor to that happening at all. And it really was interesting to see that they were able to kind of tie that into the story. And it makes sense too, in a weird way. It makes sense in like a video game way, but it was neat how they pulled that off.
Yeah, it was cool to see how they did the interdimension splitting thing, and that's.
It gets a little complicated.
Yeah, it does. It creates new timelines, things like that, and that gets confusing.
Yeah, whenever you start doing stuff like that, that's one of the negatives that you can have, is that you start not really, like, you can keep making answers for questions, but there's a lot of questions that have to be asked for people to really kind of be like, that's what's going on.
I think this game has done good with doing that. It's one of the more
well, I think Ken Levine and whoever else were working specifically on the story of Bioshock Infinite took the time to make sure that when they were making this game, closing this game off, that as many of the holes, if you want to call it that, in the story were closed. That there's going to be things that people come up with and be like, well, how did that work, type of thing. But I think they really tried to put a lot of effort into actually making sure that everything is kind of with the story.
Yeah.
And the one thing I wanted to touch on before we move on from that, though, is that this was kind of one of the points for you, Dan, that it was not necessarily this, but the interdimension stuff that was one of the negatives kind of for you in the game a bit, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool the way they did it, but there were a lot of things that, like, I thought could have gone wrong with how they set it up. They didn't actually explain how the tears were originally found. They didn't explain that they created the tears or that Anna magically had the power to open tears and create them. So it was really difficult to understand, even until the end.
Yeah, there's a bit of mystery there, and they do go into it a bit, but at the very beginning there, it's like, is this something that, you know, she has this power herself, or there's a lot of and ifs or buts that can be drawn. If you really spend the time maybe and you try and make calculations and make your own analysis of what's going on, I think you can pretty much tie up what you think on certain parts of the story. But just from a perspective of someone that might be sitting down, playing this game, want to go through, want to enjoy it, there is definitely points that can be convoluted and can be a bit hard to just take all in, because it's hard to be a sponge for some of these cases, because really there's so much water being thrown at you in that type of case. So yeah, but specifically there, we move on from just kind of jumping into the next tear, and you started to have these interactions with the Patriots at when you were meeting Slate the first time. Very subtle, not too much, but I felt like when I was in the Bullhouse Impound, that was really the first time that the Patriots started kind of being this test, this tough test that you need to face.
Yeah, that's the first time the combat and the difficulty in the game really ramps up a little bit. I think that's the first time I died. I was in that area, and a Patriot is what killed me, because there was tons of other dudes, and plus this Patriot, and I was low on health, and I wasn't getting any help. There was no med kits or anything, and I die, and then I come back to life, and I was just like, oh, there's really not that much of a punishment.
There's no real negative to this happening. But yeah, also, the auditorium too, right before that, is also another point where you get tested with pretty much everything that you face to this point, because you've met the fireman, you've met the, like, Scarecrow Cemetery dude, I don't know his exact name, and also the Patriot. And the Patriot kind of being the big bad that you're going to meet later on in the game still, it's going to come in force.
Yeah.
These are the three, and also kind of this rocket dude, or that's a perfect name for him too. But the guy that shoots rockets that has very, like, high armor. Those are four main kind of enemies you start to really face off against that start challenging you, and they really start making you mix it up a little bit in the gameplay. So. Yeah,
it's also that's also right when you get the hand cannon too, and you kind of switch it up from the first couple weapons you've had.
You start gaining power, but they also start gaining power too. And kind of at this point as well, I wanted to ask you guys, this is like the middle point of the game in a way, maybe a little bit before that. But what were you guys mixing it up with regarding vigors and weapons? What were your main choices for using?
At that part of the game, I was using a lot of the shock jockey, just to stun people, run up, and then hit them with the
skyline.
The skyhook.
Yeah, the skyhook.
And then I was also using the crows, because it was just so fun. And I had upgraded it to where if people die while they're being attacked by the crows lay like an egg thing.
Okay.
And then people run over that, more crows.
Just absolute mayhem coming from
Yeah, so what I would do is I'd shoot a crow, and then I'd go and beat them like really fast, and they'd die and leave more crows, and I'd just wait for more people to come to me, and there'd just be crows everywhere.
That's a cool little mixture there.
I was still at the point with me where I was actually just using guns. I would use shock jockey like occasionally, but I'd usually forget about my vigors, and I'd just be shooting everything.
Yeah, you kind of had that option to do that too, because the game wasn't that hard to start off with. You really, like you said, it took me same time, maybe like 5 hours or so for me to officially die in the game, which most games seem to test you hard enough, or test you at a point where it's a little bit earlier on. Some games are only 5 hours long as well, so, you know, the fact that you're going through that much of a game so far, and you pretty much haven't really been dealt the bad hand
too much.
Yeah, and I mean, when you die as well, it's not that much of a
She
punishment.
revives you. You lose like maybe $100.
Yeah, and also the enemies revive just a little bit, but not to the point that it's like, oh, they're all respawned.
It's kind of annoying if you're fighting like a big guy. It's like, oh.
Yeah, you just worked all your way to just barely killing that Patriot, and then it's like, nope, he's got his health back. So,
But for usually I'll kill the Patriot and I'll die because I've just been tanking the Patriot. So when I die and those other like the main enemies just get a little bit of health, I'm like, oh, they die in like 4 shots anyways. So
yeah,
I don't really care.
it's never really that hard to take those guys out. It's usually the bigger guys. And one of the funny parts I found out about the Patriots is that they talk about this, that if you shoot them in the back, it does a lot more damage. I never really felt like I needed to do that. You know, like it never really felt like a thing that I had to do. But it probably could have made it a whole lot easier because at the end of the game, I realized I had to do that in order to kill these guys as quick as possible. And then I was like, wow, these guys actually die pretty quickly if you shoot them right in the back. So
I actually still wasn't doing that by the time I was fighting Patriots normally. I just keep a rocket launcher, like, hidden somewhere.
Yeah.
And then whenever I saw a Patriot, I'd run back, grab it, kill it in, like, 10 seconds, keep going.
yeah, no, it's fair enough because those rocket launchers, if you hit them properly, you could get them in probably 2 or 3 shots. Usually seem like the average for taking one of those guys out. Yeah, and we all played the game on normal too, right? Was that kind of where we played the game, or
Played on hard.
you played on hard? Okay, so
on normal.
you played on normal, I played on normal, you played on hard. So I think that even is more just showing off the fact that the game wasn't extremely that big of a challenge because you were able to get through on hard without dying for like 5 hours, which is, you know, you're a good gamer, but you're not like some sort of FPS master or anything like that.
No, I also played fairly defensively while I was using like a lot of vigors, like the crows, and then staying back and like usually picking them off or running up, killing one guy and running away.
Yeah, fair enough. The other question I wanted to talk a little bit about is that we haven't really talked about Elizabeth and her combat aspects in the game. Did you guys enjoy that? Like her not actually being someone that fights in the game, but her being there
Like
still,
an aid.
Yeah, like an aid, and still being a part of the combat, but really coming in at the times you needed her most in a lot of ways, and supporting you. I felt like there's a couple of times I was nearly close to dying, and she's like, "Here's some health."
Yeah,
and,
I found some money.
yeah, I'm like, "No, not the money. I need the health." So, yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. What about you guys?
I was definitely depending on that all the time. I'd be running in, just causing havoc, killing as much as possible before I die.
Yeah.
And then I just get health. I'd be like, okay, do it again.
Yeah, actually, that was one of my minor problems. I had nothing against the game, but I was playing super defensive to start off with, and I felt like her starting to aid me actually turned me into more like a killing machine. That I was like, I don't need to worry about dying because she'll probably just save me right before I die. And then there was a couple points that I realized that why did I just do a skyline strike on a Patriot? Why did I just jump down right in front of this guy that, you know, at the beginning of the game I would have either kited him or like defensively gone up to him, shot a couple shots, gone back, made sure my shield was up again, and done it that way. But I was kind of at the point, once I started getting her help a bit more, I really just started going for it every once in a while.
Yeah. And did you guys find a bunch of the infusions or the?
Oh yeah, I found like 11 of them overall. And
Yeah, I
there's,
found
like,
a bunch of them.
There's like 15.
Yeah.
You talking about the gear or?
No, like the things that allow you to upgrade your plasmids or shield or your health.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, no, I'm sorry.
What did you put most of your points into?
It was interesting because I wanted to get the trophy for maxing out one of them.
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, I was kind of just spreading it out because I wanted to see how much each would have an impact on their slots. So at the very beginning, I tried health and see it really went up just a tiny bit. Shield, same thing too, and then salt's the same thing as well. So I played around with it a bit, and by maybe the midpoint of the game, I just started putting it all into health at that point because I felt like you know what, if I'm gonna play the game again, this is just so that, you know, I was trying to get to that point. I think I'm gonna go heavy on salts and just kind of play around with that because I feel like that would be a lot more of a fun experience.
Yeah, that's what I did, and I all of them into salts till it was maxed, and I have a lot of crows.
Yeah,
lots of crows.
Like you said, it makes those powers that you have that much more powerful. And if you ever really start running out of them, she grabs some salts for you, and you're back to being in the the place where you can use them all again. Yeah. So yeah, there's a good balance there of that. But so you go through the tear though. We were talking about that before, and you go back to Chenlin's factory. He's there, but all his parts for his equipment are now gone, and his wife has changed from this nice Asian lady that they have a Buddhist shrine there to this white lady that has a Comstock shrine, and kind of interesting.
And even at that point, Chen-Lin is still working, thinking that machines are there.
Yeah, that was again kind of touching on the fact that like who thinks what and what's actually going on. You don't really know, and there's that little bit of just trying to figure out what do these dimensions have in common, what really is the connection between all these things, right? So yeah, you at this point are still trying to get him to make those machine or use the machines so that you can make the weapons for the Vox Populi. So you go back again, you find the machine, and you create another tear. This is the point that got a little bit complicated for me. Is we're in a tear within a tear now.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if we were like jumping from world to world or what was like. That was the only part that was confusing to me. Is like, do these characters that we know who we are actually, or do they know just a different version of us in this timeline? That was the one part there that I was lost a bit on the story. But when you jump into this world, this is the world where Booker DeWitt was a martyr. He was a fighter for the Vox Populi, and he died in the battle, or in the battlefields. And really interesting when they play on this, because you see this world that has turned from a place that was pretty calm, all right, to a place that is just in ruins. Everything is going to shit, and people worship you as a hero, but you're also supposed to be dead in this world. And one point before that as well, you're have a confrontation with Comstock where he's talking to you, and your nose starts bleeding as he's talking to you about some stuff regarding yourself. And there's another point here in the game where he starts remembering memories that aren't his.
Yeah.
Or are his, but his memories that he's created for himself are not the real ones. And it's funny because he starts saying, I fought for the Vox Populi. That's what I did. I died here. And his nose starts bleeding, and he's all confused about what's going on specifically.
A little hazy.
Yeah. And it was just really interesting because I was having trouble exactly pinpointing what was going on, and it was not necessarily making sense, but it opened up that like what if factor of wait, so is he who he is, or is he what's going on with him here? Why is this happening to him? Yeah. So that was neat how they were doing that. And you're pretty much tasked at this point with trying to get to Daisy, and Daisy's not necessarily the same person. She thinks that you had died, and she believes you're a ghost, and you have to confront her after fighting a couple. You've gone through a couple handymen at this point, and I guess we should talk about that too. What do you guys think of the handymen, which are pretty much the ultimate enemy in this game?
Yeah, they're like the big daddies.
Yeah. And was it a challenge for you guys, or? They
were a big challenge early on. It got to the point later on where I just used Return to Sender and kill them really, really fast. But that was just how I played. Kill them, and then if I died, it was okay because I could kill everything else.
Yeah, the first one was really tough because I was like, oh, this isn't working the same way that the Patriots work.
Yeah.
Oh, he has a lot of health.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I finally killed him, and I'm like, I don't have very much health. I'm gonna go loot his body, and I died because he exploded, and that was probably my dumbest death in the game.
Yeah. And
I was just like, oh, come on.
There's for me actually the first one wasn't too hard because I knew that if I shot at the heart, it would do the most damage, and I had my hand cannon in hand, and I was going pop, 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 trying to shoot right into his heart, and it did a lot of damage. I didn't really get into that much trouble there, but there was other points in the game, not necessarily at the end, but I think the second one was one that I had a bit of trouble with. But one of the things I had a lot of fun with was when you see Fink die, when Fitzroy kills Fink, which is one of the bigger story parts. You don't really know Fink that well, but Fitzroy seems a little crazy.
At that point, I'm like, oh no, she's gone a little cuckoo.
Yeah, and it's this world. She's gotten the lust for power essentially, and she's really, really, just trying to create this world that is, this Columbia is now going to ruin, and she's the head behind all that. Yeah. So it was neat, that kind of battle there. And I really enjoyed actually the battles that we were able to have that had these skyline hooks that you could go around on, because it was kind of like, for me at least, I could pick people off. I could just fly around, pick people off. The actual handyman kind of got in the way of that because they electrocute the skylines, but still it was really neat because this gave me an option of getting around really quickly and I was able to take out certain guys and
get up to higher ground, things like that.
Yeah, it had certain touches of almost feeling like I was an assassin in some sort of way, where I was just jumping down, killing things, and you know.
It reminded me of Arkham Asylum, where I would like jump down, get one guy, and then jump back up.
Yeah, that is exactly. Sorry, go ahead if you had more on that. But,
no, it was just jump back up in the air and
they don't necessarily know where you are. If they do know where you are, they can't really get to you either. So that was pretty neat. And probably one of the better story points too of that was that this is when Elizabeth kills Fitzroy after all that happens, and she's stricken with grief after doing that. And again, the whole look that she has on her face when that happens, it just, you can see that she's like freaked right out. Has the, I guess she had scissors in her hands or something like that that she killed her with. But yeah, she runs away to the airship, which is the First Lady once again. And she does the wardrobe change that we're all familiar with, which was kind of funny because they showed her off that way before. Again, I don't know how much you guys actually looked at the trailers and stuff like that. But
yeah, I saw her as the purple dress, short hair.
Yeah, and it was cool actually because I really enjoyed her kind of in the tower, how she was like that, because it's more natural. I don't know, the whole get up seemed a little bit more steampunk in a way or something like that. So. Yeah, but so you're escaping with her this time around, and I think you're going to Paris this time. It seemed like you guys were just like, we'll settle our differences, just get away from this crazy place. But unfortunately, Songbird, I guess for me, I felt like, okay, we're going to deal with the Songbird right at the tower. That didn't happen. And at this point now, we're like free of the Songbird for so long.
That you forget.
Yeah, you almost forget. It was still in the back of my head there. But nonetheless, he ruins the situation once more. The ship goes down, and you kind of realize that there really is no escaping this place with this bird still alive.
Yeah, the Songbird, I really like what they did with it. At first, I thought it was going to be like the Big Daddy, where you're going to have to fight it a bunch of times. And it's not really. It's kind of like this ever like growing fear that it's going to come and like attack you.
Yeah, and like I said, or at least for me, I had this fear immediately of like, oh, there's gonna be a confrontation with this bird, and that never came, and almost just went into the backdrop. But right at that moment where you're kind of like, I don't know when we're gonna see this, maybe we'll get away and maybe it won't play a big deal, but then you know at the same time as well, there's got to be something more to this bird. There's got to be more to this coming forward here. So the Zeppelin crashes. You meet the Lutece twins again. They kind of talk a little bit about how the bird's controlled by music, which you've heard the music from time to time. And this point of the game, we're going to jump a little bit more ahead because this is where it really gets meaty in its actual detail. You realize that you need to head to Comstock House. You need to figure out how you're going to essentially deal with this bird. There's going to be some sort of way to at least stop it, get away from this place, right? And you go through the process of actually getting there, but it's not going to let you in because it's censored to, I think, Lady Comstock, and then also, I guess, Zachary Comstock can use the doorway there, the lion doorway. I thought that was a nice little bit of a humor there. It's like, oh, Lady Comstock, I haven't seen you in 19 years. You've been dead since then. How you been? It was kind of neat how they did that because she was wearing the clothing there. At this point, you actually get your first real experience with a boss in some sort of way, and that's Lady Comstock, as you head to her grave to get her fingerprint. And there is the same machine that's used, the siphons that are used in the tower that are also present there. And I guess Zachary Comstock knew that something was going to be coming of this, where she eventually might reach Lady Comstock, and uses her power to essentially regenerate her body and bring her back to life. Which, again, kind of like, what's going on here? And that whole battle is a pretty crazy battle, and for me, I didn't really realize that there was other tears that I could use to get some better weapons. So I had some terrible weapons. I was fighting this absolute beast of a character, and it was a bit of a struggle for me. But what about you guys? Was that a highlight for the game for you, or?
I was a little thrown by it because they didn't. It was a little bit weird.
Yeah.
It was almost like it fit, but it was close to like being a little bit off of what they've been trying to build on so far.
Yeah. What about you?
I definitely didn't expect it at all. It was kind of weird. I did figure out that I could grab weapons and stuff, and I figured out where the medical kits were. I'd actually visited the graveyard before when I was searching around, so I knew where everything was.
That's good.
So I grabbed the rocket launcher, did my old run up and
Yeah.
and then ran out of ammo pretty quickly. So I had to scrounge, use the shotgun. It took like 10 to 15 minutes each to kill her.
Yeah, for me, my problem was that I had like a sniper rifle and a machine gun, which are probably the two weapons you least want to be carrying low on ammo type of scenario. And I was like, where is everything that I can use? Because I was relying on her to, give me stuff, or like the enemies to drop anything, which they're barely doing. And I was just getting a little bit frustrated at that spot. But yeah, at this point, you realize that she's trying to tell you something. She's trying to, show you, or at least it seems like she's trying to show you something. And you get to go to these tears in different spots, and it reveals that this machine, one of the spots specifically shows off the machine that was created, the tear machine, and how that was used and why it was created to... Well, they don't really go that deep into why it was created, but just that the Lutece created the machine.
Yeah.
And then, besides from that too, they kind of touch on the fact that they already, again, did this before, but that Elizabeth actually wasn't Lady Comstock's child. At least in this universe, she wasn't Lady Comstock's child. And again, that kind of mixes and sways of what universe are these characters from and what's really going on. But these couple points that they touch on here did a little bit of, help, at least, to me, for me to understand the story a bit more. Also confirming that Lutece was dead.
Yeah.
So
I also really enjoyed when Elizabeth was talking to the ghost and like being like, it's not my fault, I was a prisoner.
Yeah, we were on the same page here a lot of ways. And yeah, it was cool too because it did a lot for kind of filling out what was going on. And that was really needed in some way, shape, or form, because there was points where I was kind of questioning, okay, how is this all going to fit together? And even though this didn't really touch on the ending specifically, it did play a part in also making sure that, at least in some ways, that the person playing the game knew kind of where all these pieces were starting to fit into.
Yeah.
So you do, after that, go and head your way to Comstock House, and before you get there specifically, there's an issue with the fact that the songbird shows up once again, and this point, Elizabeth essentially saves you from dying. It says, "Take me away. Just don't hurt him," which is what the songbird does. And you chase after the songbird, and what follows from that is you essentially go through a tear. It seems like you go to a different time, and you're also entering this place that has a completely different mood from the game that you've been playing for pretty much the whole time thus far.
It's a lot darker and grittier.
Yeah. Well, you go to this asylum first off, and there's these people that have, I guess, was it Washington wigs on? They're just sitting around everywhere.
Yeah.
I thought they were Benjamin Franklin ones.
Like Parliament wigs almost.
Parliament wigs, pretty much, yeah. And, so you see a couple of these guys around, and you hear Elizabeth screaming, but it's coming from a tear, which you don't realize till that point. And, it was really neat because you meet this character that is in this asylum that you do not meet again. This is the only time that you actually have an experience with this character. And it was really cool because, for me, this was actually a really great enemy. I don't even know what it's called. I would call it the Siren or something like that, because the creature, or whatever it was, that had that two sides on its head that would shoot out noise, and every time it would do that, all these either possessed or just incarnations of the dead came and started attacking you.
It was a weird thing though. It was like, it was fun, and it was like it kind of fit, but I was just like, that's unusual.
Yeah.
I was wondering, can you actually get past those without fighting them? I didn't actually try because I was trying to get some gun achievements at the time.
Yeah.
But
I think you can kind of dance around some of the enemies at any point in the game, but usually there's points where you need to open a lockpick to get to the next spot, and you need to actually, defeat the enemies you're fighting to open up that lock. So it does stop you. It's kind of like arena battles every once in a while in the game. So
because I remember they were shooting out light, and they would stare at you and turn red if they noticed you.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of time where I'd walk by them, but then I'd change my mind and go back and fight them.
Oh, okay, I get what you mean. I thought you were talking about more just the enemies in general. I didn't not try. I wanted to see what that had to offer as well. So I didn't really try and just sneak by them. So
Yeah, I fought him as well.
So yeah, you go through this whole asylum, and I was trying to pick up all the Vox phones up here, and again, I wasn't really connecting to pieces that this was a completely new tear. So it was really interesting to me that I was hearing this Elizabeth that had changed. She wasn't Elizabeth anymore. She was really this just, you know, she's lost all hope. She started kind of thinking that the Zachary Comstock is right. This is the way that she needs to live. That Booker DeWitt is a false shepherd and not going to come save her. And it was really interesting because, again, she's been this character that you've seen in this positive light for so long in the game. This is the first point that they actually paint her dark. She's had dark experiences, like seeing you kill people or killing Daisy Fitzroy, but besides from that, she really hasn't seemed extremely dark or depressed or just hopeless. And this is the first real time that I was kind of like, wait, why is this happening? Why is she in this type of mood? Yeah. And you finally get all the way up, you get to her, and it's obvious that something's changed. If not, maybe not even Elizabeth, but it turns out to be Elizabeth, just older. And
if he hadn't come to get her a second time.
Yeah, so the mention that she's never saved, and she kind of says that time is the only thing that really killed her, not the indoctrination, not the pain, not the you not coming. It's the fact that just ran out of time. And really kind of deep part of the game, but I thought it was really cool. And it was one of those nice touches for me to the story that, sending you back in time to save Elizabeth was really cool, because it was kind of, something, it's almost a trope that you see in some sort of time related, movie, but you rarely do see that, and it fits so perfectly, at least I felt like for me, that you saw the bad, now make it good.
It was almost cliche, but it was like, it was done well.
It fit the script that was going on currently in the story to a T. And so you go through that, you save her. She is given a note by her her past self, or the other dimension, just telling her how to essentially
avoid becoming her.
Yeah, and also to, I guess, maybe trust Booker, and also deal with the songbird. Make the songbird trust, not trust her, but sing to the songbird in a way that he will help, or the bird will help. And this leads to you going after Comstock. She wants to kill Comstock. You get onto his Zeppelin. You climb all the way up there. Again, one of my favorite parts in the game, because there's enemies, but they're not extremely challenging. It makes you feel empowered, makes you feel like you're pushing towards this goal of finally getting to the man that has been a thorn in your side this whole time. And the first time, at least for me, that I really felt like there was something deeper here. Yeah. There was something going on that was going to break open. We're going to get this big reveal, was when you killed Comstock. And he essentially said the job has been done. He was happy to die because he realized that, yes, he would kill him, but in his mind, things would still go on the way it was. And this would only prove to her that you were not the person that she should trust. Did that kind of resonate with you guys the same way? Or what I mean by that is that for me, when I saw that happen, she was asking him about the finger. What is wrong with my finger? And he doesn't know, and his nose is bleeding again. And you start putting the pieces together between the nose bleeding and how the other characters that were dead had their noses bleeding, and how it was the dimension connections. Again, really complicated in a lot of ways. But this was the point where it was like, okay, maybe he's not from this dimension, because he's jumped so many dimensions as well. Maybe his mind is messed up as well. He can't remember.
That's why he's a prophet, things like that.
Yeah, and not even that necessarily. I'm talking about Booker and the fact that he doesn't know what he's done, but Elizabeth is starting to see the facts that Booker is this person that, probably, again, future Elizabeth, or Elizabeth that was older in the other dimension, told her that, you need to trust this guy, but he doesn't know who he is as well. Yeah. Was that kind of the same thing for you guys, though? Like, was that the same experience of going into this and just being like, okay, I'm starting to...
That's where I started, like, that's where the gears started turning. I'm like, oh, okay, there's more to this. It's not going to be a simple...
It's not kill Comstock, game over.
Yeah, it's not going to be like that.
I figured that there was going to be some great revelation at the end, but...
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was almost... Actually, I said it's not kill Comstock and game over. It actually is kill Comstock and game over, but not in that type of sense. So here on the Zeppelin, you kill Comstock, the Vox are trying to attack you. You have this one last big battle with them, and then you're at the end of the game. The pieces come together at the very end of the game, and this is where we're going to spend a good time here talking about, before the verdict, is our opinions on the end of the game. And so we'll start off the fact that Booker, destroys the tower, destroys the siphons, uses a songbird to do so, loses control of the songbird, and Elizabeth, because the siphons have been cut, assumingly, she's able to use her tears to transfer them. Where does she transfer them?
To Rapture, which as soon as that happened, I was like, oh
snap. Yeah. There was I was in shock at this point, because I'm like, I didn't know where they were going with this, but we're walking around in Rapture, and it was such a crazy, cool feeling.
I actually loved that part too, because of the way the songbird's dying, but
Yeah.
she's still singing to it, it'll be okay, it'll be okay, just accept it.
And again, if you want to call the songbird a villain in the game, probably one of the better just portrayals of a character that I've seen that isn't even speaking, is a machine, but you see this really complicated relationship between Elizabeth and the bird, and how there is love and hate there. And obviously the bird can't really feel love or hate. It just kind of goes from red to orange to green in its emotions. But I thought it was really unique how right before the bird died, its eyes switched to green, and it was kind of showing this love towards Elizabeth, and really touching part there. But yeah, going to this other dimension, going through the Blasphere, we're talking about the fact that the Blaspheres actually need your ID to get into them.
And only Andrew Ryan or someone related to Andrew Ryan can control them.
Yeah, which we won't go too much into detail, because that's just a whole different kind of tangent of what ifs and all that. But it kind of maybe says, maybe in a different dimension, he made Rapture instead of making, Columbia, or he's this Andrew Ryan or something
Maybe
along those lines. There's a descendant,
he had a son instead of a daughter.
There's some sort of connection between all these characters, and it was neat, because they're just kind of doing the nod there. They're kind of saying, look at that, this is a relationship here that could be connected. We're not going to say much of it, but if you want to dig for it, you can probably find some cool info about that. And right here, right now, Elizabeth seems kind of all-knowing, because she's obviously been told a lot of information from future Elizabeth about what's going on, and she talks about these stars. I was kind of confused at that point, but it comes to pass that lighthouses are stars. These are all different dimensions.
Yeah.
And just how this game closes its book, for me, I guess, again, we're going back to the difference. I think me and Gage are kind of on the same page with how we felt about it. Dan, you felt a little bit more like, I didn't really get the full feeling out of it, but for me at least, I really got this kind of overwhelming feeling of holy crap at the end. When it went black, when the credits started rolling, I was just like... I just hit, I don't even know how to say it. We were both speechless. I was, again, doing the walkthrough. I didn't know what to say. I just started clapping. I was just like, yeah, wow, okay.
Great story.
Yeah. And we touched on it a little bit, but what was your kind of issues with the ending in ways?
Well, initially it was just really convoluted. I didn't understand it all that well. Eventually I was able to understand it, partially through Bryden. He helped to explain it to me. But there was parts, when Elizabeth had her finger cut off through a portal. One, I didn't actually notice that her finger got cut off.
Yeah.
And then there was no explanation on how that affected anything. It didn't explain whether that gave her powers, or they gave her power through
the machine. Yeah, there's a bit of a what is, there's a lot of, there's not loose ends, but it's kind of the what ifs.
Yeah.
And
how?
Yeah. And it was really cool how they did it, because they kept going through these doors, and you got to see that Booker was actually brought into this dimension by the Lutece twins, which are actually not twins, but the same person
from different dimensions.
Yes. And that was another kind of thing that I was like, okay, that makes sense, but I had to sit on that fact. It didn't come to me right away. Still though, these characters bring you in, and they're trying to stop Zachary Comstock because he betrays them in their timelines. So it's kind of like a redemption type of quest from them in order for maybe in a different timeline for their lives to be better. So they're getting a benefit out of bringing you back, but they're also formulating this memory and this story for you. Bring the girl and wipe away the debt. And this cuts back to the original situation where Booker killed hundreds of people at Wounded Knee. He was a part of the Boxer Rebellion. This is a man that had seen a lot of grief in his life, and he obviously had issues that maybe led to him, being in debt, not having the money to sustain his life.
Gambling.
Yeah, and actually in one timeline or another, selling his child to Zachary Comstock, who came to him, probably offered all the riches in the world to make that happen. And the connection here that you need to make is that Zachary Comstock is Booker DeWitt. They are the same person, but they are different timelines. And the way this has worked out is the fact that there's an option for Booker at one point after Wounded Knee
to be baptized.
Yes, to be born again. And when he does choose to be born again in one timeline, he becomes Zachary Comstock. But in the original timeline, he chooses not to. The idea here is that every timeline has a yes or no type of answer. There's always one way, a heads or a tails. There's always this side and then the other. There's usually going to be one or two options that split the timeline, split the dimensions. And in this case, Zachary Comstock, reborn man, religious man, creates Columbia, creates his place. The one key though is he's also infertile, and because he has Lutece, that's, I guess, someone that's very prominent that is able to make this city work, is able to build these, I'll call them floating balloons. There's a lot more of a detailed description in the game, but still, she's able to create these tear machines, and he realizes that he can go back to another form of himself where he has a child.
And can take that as his heir.
Yes, and that's still, a connection to him because it's actually, in a different timeline, his blood. Yeah. So it does connect and does make sense. And the idea that they kind of go on here is that no matter what, he would get his way. And that's why there's no other timeline that has that not happening, because if he either sells or steals the child, he will get the child because that is what's going to happen. But yeah, it's really neat how they all tie that together, and the realization at the very end part where all the Elizabeths come together from these different timelines, and you find out that you
have to die.
You have to die in order for you to live. And by killing yourself, you're actually killing the existence of Zachary Comstock, which in turn doesn't mean there's a Columbia, doesn't mean there's an Elizabeth, but there is a world where Booker and Anna, who is Elizabeth, can be together and essentially right the wrongs of what he did in this different timeline.
Yeah, and I think one of the best parts of the game is actually the epilogue, when it goes back to the date that he originally gave Anna up.
Yeah.
And he just walks in the room yelling Anna, he hears music, and cuts to black as soon as you see the crib.
Which overall is a pretty nice touch too, because it leaves the door open of what actually happened at the end, but you like to think at least that they get to be together, and hopefully there will be a positive outcome from this. The interesting part though is this game has a season pass for DLC, and I'm interested to see what it's going to have to offer, because it could be more about this, but I'm feeling like it might just be more stories of Columbia-esque.
I hope there's at least some background story to that in that, but it is 3 packs of DLC, which is pretty good.
Maybe it'll kind of flesh out the story a bit more, which would be cool to see, because some games do that where you have to put all this story into this one, small game, and the DLC essentially can play a part in just kind of fleshing that out, making sure that the people that really want to know more about Columbia get the opportunity to do so. Alright, we'll move on to the final verdict then for Bioshock Infinite. What we do at the end of each Spoilercast is we go around the table and get each of our opinions specifically on our experience of the game. We give the game a score and just give our overall overview of what we thought of it in the end. And the score that we use for Checkpoint Achieved Spoilercast is a 8-point scale, or 7-point scale actually, which is kind of based essentially on our opinions of what we had with the game and what we would recommend to you guys going out there to get a game overall. The top score that we give a game is a classic, which is something that we rarely do. It's a 9.8 to a 10, and then a must-play below that is a game that we really recommend you guys go play. Probably one of the better games that comes out in a year, and kind of a Game of the Year candidate, and really something that if you're a gamer, you need to go check it out. That's a 9 to a 9.7. Below that is a full price, which is another game that's very solid too. We're kind of getting into that great type of territory where it's a good game overall. There's a lot of stuff that we really like about it, but it's not standing out to the higher echelons of maybe the best games that came out in that year. Still something though that you need to experience, and that's an 8 to an 8.9. Then below that, we got the price drop, which is Still something that we had fun playing, but we don't necessarily recommend you guys go out and play it right away. And it's a game that we give about 6.5 to 7.9, something that you maybe pick it up when it goes down to a discount of $30 or $40, and still fun overall, but just something that we wouldn't recommend you to run out to the store and get right away. Below that, we got Bargain Bin, which is 5 to 6.4, and that's just a game that we say, if you really want to play, go ahead, but we don't really recommend it. There's some redeeming qualities to it overall, but it's not the best game in the world. Check it out maybe if it's in the Bargain Bin one day. Boxing Day, $10, $20 deal. At the very bottom of the list is Don't Buy and Broken Game, which is something that we rarely will give a game that we do a spoiler cast for, because usually these are games that we're very excited to play. These are two titles that we really give games that we just did not enjoy. We do not recommend you go play them. And at the higher end of the scale, 3 to 4.5, 4.9 for Don't Buy. Something you just say, don't buy this game. It's not that great. Broken Game below that is 1 to 2.9. This thing is just straight up broken, and we obviously made a mistake if we actually are going to give a score to a game like that. So we'll start off first with Dan. What do you think of the game overall?
Well, the game was a very, very good game. It's on the lower end of a must-play. The ending threw me off a little bit, but the gameplay was amazing. It was a little bit different than Bioshock 1. I didn't actually play Bioshock 2, so I can't compare it to that.
What was your positives of the game overall?
The storyline character development was incredible. Just how Elizabeth slowly changed throughout the story, learning a bit more about Booker DeWitt, and how Comstock related to them. Overall, a very good game. I give it a 9.1.
All right, that's good to know. And so you do recommend it for people to play, though?
Definitely.
Yeah, it is a very cool experience. We also have Emily Woodley's opinion on this. She wasn't able to be on the show today, but we were able to get her on earlier on Skype, so you guys can hear a little bit about what she had to think of it as well. Alright, so we weren't able to get Emily on the show today, but we still wanted to get her opinion about Bioshock Infinite since she's such a big fan of the series, so we're able to get her on via Skype. She's going to give her verdict about the game and overall her experience of it. How you doing today, Emily?
I'm doing very well, Bryden. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I want to start off first with how you enjoyed the game, just your experience in general, and then we can kind of get to your verdict on it.
Sure. Well, I really, really liked it. Like, I got through it in 2, 7-hour sittings. Like, I really plowed through it. But I was blown away by the game. Like, I got it.
Yeah, no, definitely. What was your favorite part of the game in general? Like, what was the moment that grabbed you and you said, I'm in, take me on this ride, let's go?
Well, pretty much. Like, I even recorded myself, just my voice on my phone when I first started playing the game, like, just to get my reaction from it. Yeah. And just from, like, the visual effects and how seamless and stunning everything looked, like, that was the selling point for me. Like, literally the first 30 seconds of the game I was in.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your opinion a little bit on the story as well. I'll get your opinion on the ending of the story too, but just like this story in general, how much do you enjoy that part of the game? Was that the selling ticket for you, or?
Yes, I definitely, there's still a lot about the story that I don't understand. Like, I haven't really touched it since I finished it. I've kind of just let it lie, let myself process all the information and just kind of let it sink in so I can, make a solid decision on it. But there's still definitely a lot of stuff that I don't understand from the storyline, but the way that it all kind of tied in at the end and then things started clicking really fast, it was really, really interesting. I found it really unique from any other game that I've ever played with such an intense, like, in-depth, abstract kind of storyline.
Yeah, so I guess we'll move on, though. I want to get your verdict on the game and just kind of why you feel like this game deserves what you're going to give it. We're going to give our verdicts, too, but obviously, because you're not on the show, that'll be kind of mixed in with the rest of it. This will be mixed in with the verdicts here. But what did you think of the game overall? What's your score for it? What type of rating did you give it?
I think I'm gonna give it a 9.7, a must play.
Okay.
For myself, it's like, I consider it a classic game for myself. Like, I'm definitely going to be playing it a few more times at least. It's definitely gonna be one of those games that I can easily go back and play again and not get tired of.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a few glitches that were kind of like, like, oh, like, just do it, like, there were some parts where it didn't trigger when it was supposed to, and some controls that weren't functioning like they were supposed to, which is very, very minimal on the grand scheme of things, because it is such a very multifaceted game. But I think a 9.7 is a pretty, I think a 9.7 pretty much sums it up for me.
But still nitpicks, though, because this game is an amazing game, and I want to get your opinion on one more thing, too. Is it better than Bioshock?
Like the first Bioshock?
The first Bioshock, yeah.
That's I don't know.
I still have to think about it. I feel like it is for me. But I guess you had a different experience with it too, because like you said, you picked it up, you played it when it came out, or back 5-6 years ago or so. So you got that experience when that world looked absolutely amazing as well. So it's all game experiences are very much in a vacuum, right? So
yeah, for sure.
But thanks so much for giving your opinion on Bioshock Infinite. Really awesome to hear what you think, and hopefully we'll have you on the show in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Bryden. That's awesome.
All right, we'll jump back to the show now. Okay, so that's what Emily thought of the game. She really had a good experience with it. Not quite a classic for her, but a very, very, very high must-play at 9.7. I'll jump to you, Gage, now. What was your opinion on this game? I know you're in the same category as her.
Yeah, I'm at a 9.8, which it is classic. It's on the low end, but I love this game.
It deserves that title, though, right?
I am a huge Bioshock fan. I played the first one so much. Played the second one a little bit. It was a little different, but this game, it felt like a Bioshock game, and I know I'm gonna play this game multiple times. I've already started another run on it in the 1999 mode, and the gameplay was fun. I had a lot of fun with the Vigors, but the story was just incredible. The ending and the characters.
Definitely. I don't know. For me, it was like I expected great things out of this game, but it actually delivered, and almost I have to say it probably exceeded my expectations too. Yeah. And that's a lot to ask of a game such as this, but really an amazing journey, and I think as well it's fully deserving of a title such as a classic game. My one question for you is regarding the Bioshock games. Is this the best Bioshock game? Because I know you're a huge fan of Bioshock. Where does this stand next to it?
That is a really hard question. It is definitely in the top 2.
Yeah. Beats Bioshock 2 a bit, but...
Yeah, but okay, I think that it is better. The story is a little bit better, just because Booker can talk, whereas Jack was silent.
Yeah.
And the characters are a little more fleshed out. It's a Bioshock game. It's been done before. The first one was almost... It was new. It was different. Yeah. So I think I would say this one is better. But I think I have a lot of nostalgia for Bioshock 1.
There's a connection there for you. For me personally, I have to say Infinite is better. I need time to sit on this game because we're doing this podcast pretty quickly after finishing the game. Usually I take weeks to really just kind of sit on something, mull over it, compare it to other stuff when I really come out and say I enjoyed a game or not. But in the case that we do a Spoilercast, it's something that we need to talk about pretty quickly, and for me right now, I had a great time with Bioshock. I didn't get to play it right away when it came out, so I lost some of that special feeling I had, but still, I knew nothing about it. I didn't know any spoilers, so when this stuff happened in that game, it was amazing. It was mind-blowing to me. And really, it hit all the marks of an amazing game, and that world was so well realized. But the reason why I think Bioshock Infinite is a better game is because it does everything that Rapture did, that Bioshock did, but does it better. And this is a completely different world. They have the same name, they carry some of the same traits, but they are different games. They connect, but they are separate at the same time too.
It has a Bioshock feel, but it's completely different.
This isn't a part of a trilogy or anything like that. It's its own it's its own thing in general. And the way that they're able to make Booker a really, really great character that you're able to not necessarily relate with because he goes through a lot of crazy things, but also still just kind of be along for the ride and still think that when you're in his shoes, you're making decisions that you would make as him. He feels like a very honest character that would be someone that I'd relate to in a lot of cases that he's in. But the person that steals the show specifically, Emily, or the character...
Elizabeth.
is Elizabeth. She's amazing in this game, and as I already said, she's probably the best female character I've ever seen in a video game. Maybe the best character. I don't know. I can't say that again. That's something I need to mull over a bit. But her alone, the songbird, everything that connects together, this game needs to be recognized as one of the best games that came out this generation. And I guarantee this will be in the top 3 when we talk about best games of this generation.
Yeah.
Close to Bioshock. I'm really excited when we get down to the summer and we talk about the best games of this generation. I am really excited to see where this sits. But there is no way that this game is not considered one of the best of this generation.
Bioshock creates a feel that I don't think I've felt with many other games ever before.
There's a connection in this one too. And then it has to be said, that ending, even though it was convoluted, even though it was tough to understand at points,
Brilliant.
it made it happen. It made me just sit there in awe and be like, holy crap, this was amazing. And it tied the bow on this amazing experience. So for me personally, I had tiny issues with the game that were due to personal glitches that I had, and that last Vox fight that you had with the Zeppelins and the Songbird, they didn't necessarily resonate with me in the same way that I'd like them to. But you know what? I had to put that aside because this game was an amazing game. I can't say it's higher than the 9.8 because I want to leave those spots open for something that blows me away, because I hope one day there will be a video game that I say is a perfect game.
Has no faults.
Yeah, and a 9.9, and this is me being very nitpicky, is something that's close to that too. 9.8, though, says this game is a classic. This game is a classic. We both agree that, and it'll be one of the better games that we talk about in this generation, one of the top 5, if not possibly even the best. So my vote is a 9.8, Gage is a 9.8, Emily 9.7, and Dan 9.1. And that's been the show this time around, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to recommend a game for us to play in the future for a Spoilercast episode, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to check out our regular show we do as well, we post that on YouTube. We're also on iTunes, so check that out too. We got the YouTube channel, Brydo, where I post this stuff here. And then as well, I'm on Twitter at Brydo. You got a Twitter there, Gage? Or?
I do not.
All right, so no plug-in for Gage there, but that's all my stuff. I hope you enjoyed, though, guys. And we'll see you around in the future. Thanks for watching.
Us.
Yeah, email. Send us questions. See you guys. Email us questions at checkpointachieved@gmail.com.